Okay, looks like we are live, and we're going to start today just right off the bat. This is the last class before you all go home, I hope, for your wonderful holiday break, your winter break. I really appreciate all the work that you've done this semester. This is essentially your final exam. We're live to the YouTubers of the world before their holiday break as well, and we're going to start with Bruckner 7. We're using an amalgam of people from the Boston area, mostly BU, but some people from NEC. And this is, I'm Toby Yoft, of course, and this is my orchestral techniques class. We're going to start with Bruckner 7. We've got a section of the first movement, and then we're going to move to the last movement, and then we'll move forward from there. Different section altogether to do the excerpts of the Ring, Das Rheingold and Die Walküre. It's exciting for that because we've got the full low brass section that's done a wonderful amount of preparation. Yeah, let's dive in, shall we? We've got Greg Knudsen here playing first. No, Greg Knudsen. Forgive me, Gregory Platt. Greg Knudsen is my friend. I always like blank with names. That's my thing. It's like, yeah, but usually I miss less notes when I'm nervous, but I forget people's names. I got your first name. Good. Kris Danielsen, yeah. Israel Gutierrez, right? Eric Goode. Not good, Goode, yeah. Okay, let's hear what you got at this first part here. Bravo. Now this opening salvo for one of the most melodic of Bruckner's symphonies, it has this moment where the first trombone gets to be like I feel like first violin, you know, and that soaring melody at the end. What you want to remember all the way through this is to keep it, of course, round and vocal, which you're all doing a great job of. The tendency here, of course, when you have that solo is to get a little too hot. And you just want to kind of sit on top with a nice golden sound, right? Nice warm sound. Never ever pushed, okay? Why don't we try it one more time, just a little warmer, especially from you, Greg, okay? One, two, three. How'd that feel? Was that easier? Yeah. So usually in Bruckner and in Wagner for that matter, when you feel like you're getting overly fatigued, especially in the first few bars of the piece, you might be doing something wrong, right? It's not supposed to be physically challenging. If it is physically challenging, then you might be going for an athletic event instead of sort of a resonant sound. So usually the easier that it gets, the more on point that you are. Yeah. Let's move forward, shall we? This other section that you prepared at M is much different than that, right? So what I want to point out is that you've got, you got a lot of different articulations marked in Bruckner. Right? And everybody's got an opinion about them. They're not all the same, right? A lot of times you've got the caps, right? And if you see like the little teepees on top of the note in jazz, for example, you want to sting that, right? It's a marcato, essentially called marked stress. But in 19th century Germanic style, that may be less appropriate to sting it. And in fact, in Bruckner, where we typically are looking at music written by an organist, we want to be a little more gentle with our attacks, right? The way that we typically do it in Boston is we play warm like a timpani hit on these TP attacks, right? So a timpani with soft mallets, it doesn't mean that there isn't clarity to the attacks, but there's no aggression to the attacks, right? So where you have accents, typically that's got a little bit more point on the front, if you want to even call it that. But the caps in particular, we're thinking rather broad and weighted at the front, like a warm timpani hit, okay? So, and we're going to play here at M for those of you at home that are following along with your score and in the class. And what we're going for is a sort of a broad style and technique and a weighted front. We breathe into the front of these notes with the air, okay? Let the air be the architect of the articulation in this case, all right? All that said, give it a go. Whenever that happens, and it happens to the best of us, when we feel that the pitch isn't settled, you got to warm up the sound, all right? Pitch isn't settled, that actually might have something to do with the fact that you need to move the slide, but it's harder to hear. It's harder to hear when you need to move the slide if you're burning the sound with a sort of metallic texture, right? A timbre of metal, like that kind of steel rod kind of sound. And you guys weren't doing any of that, but I think that when there was a moment that you needed to check in with the pitch, potentially you could adjust balance as well. If second trombone, and not to pick on you, Kris, but potentially if you were sticking out a bit, it would throw off the pitch. Likewise to you as well, Israel, right? So what I see you doing, and I really appreciate it, is you're all adjusting as you play. Right? It's not like this is C, it's in third position, here it is, right? And it's not immobile, like you move, right? And I really appreciate that. I would suggest moving forward with this that as you're playing in these dynamic extremes of fortissimo, in the upper register, that you go for a warmer tone quality whenever you hear a pitch problem, okay? Try it again. With that in mind, maybe a little bit slower. Are you okay with that, Greg? Just go a little bit slower so there's an opportunity to adjust both with the slide for your colleagues and then as well the timbre, right?
One, two, three, four. One, two.
Yeah, it's a bit better. How do you feel about that upper note there, Greg? That
Not always good.
high B?
Not always
Yeah, that's, the nice thing about that high B is, for those of you following along with your score, perhaps you can confirm this, lots of people have that high B. Like horn, right? Maybe some trumpets, potentially some woodwinds, right? Can I get a yeah?
Yeah.
Nice. Wasn't even sure you guys were there. Okay. So the fact is, like when you're playing the orchestra, you can kind of relax, and you don't worry about it quite as much. And the thing is, like if you clam it, and everybody's playing in unison and they nail it, then they know who missed it. That's so I guess potentially there's that. But in this case, I think that what I would have you do is think less about proving something. If you're playing and you feel like you have to prove something, sometimes it's like you're adding pressure to a pressure situation. What you need to do is just kind of sing along with the music in your mind, fill up so that you have that support here, below your navel. I think about like breathing to that spot, essentially like between my hips and below my navel. And that's where the support for that high B comes from. And you got to go for it with the breath support. If you try to stick it with the tongue, oftentimes that percussion wave is enough to just bump you right off that, and you kind of chip it, okay? So here I am like talking about it. Why don't you give me a chance to prove whether I know what I'm talking about? See how this goes. And then you try it, okay? Yeah, is that okay? Just stand in. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, ready. So, how did that feel, Kris? What did you notice? Is there anything different that you would tell Greg to do that I did that made it easier to find, or?
Just the sustain was just more. I mean, the ends of the notes just kept
going.
Yeah.
So you're saying that there was more. It was more sustained, and the notes kept going. What about the attacks?
I mean, yeah, it was really easy to play with you.
Okay, well, if there's anything that I did, it's not that it wouldn't bug me if there was something that I did that didn't help you. But I mean, I think that when you play first, it's important to remember that you're like trying to inspire confidence in your colleagues, and you can do that a lot by being sort of consistent with your style and the way that you breathe, but also the shape of your notes when you're demonstrating that style, and the way that you might even move. If there's, it's kind of hard to put your finger on, and I think that there's an art to it, just like there's an art to playing second, because there's times that I look to second trombone, to Steve Lang, I'll be like, man, I don't feel confident today. I'm like, oh, okay, how's it going? We'll just kind of talk it out, and then I feel like I've got a friend sitting next to me, and I think that the dynamic between first and second trombone is a very unique skill set, and I want to kind of nod to that, both from a stylistic and professional perspective, but from a personal perspective as well. When you're playing together, there's things you do, how you count it off and how you breathe, and you're holding yourself with great posture, I should say, and the way that you're moving is demonstrative of, I'm sure, like inspiring confidence. right? I would say that what I felt when I was playing is that I was really breathing into the fronts of the notes, right? And I generated a ring much like a bell, and I just did everything I could to keep that ring going, right? So maybe that's what we're talking about with sustain, because I don't have a problem out here with the sustain that you're playing with, but I do feel like there's a bit more ring in my sound. And when I say sustain, I'm talking about sustaining that ring. Because you can talk about playing particularly long with your notes, and it just becomes like trying to stir peanut butter, you know, and it doesn't really get going in the same way that warm honey would, right? So we're looking for that ring. When you get that ring, that's what we want to sustain, okay? Give it a try. Kicking yourself, but that was a ring.
Yeah.
That was a ring.
It felt different.
Okay, yeah. Did you notice that, Kris?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good, okay? I want you to, you know, potentially you can look back at the tape. You flinched, or maybe it was like you were trying to, like, here it is. Like when you went to that B natural, you jumped with your torso. I know there's like a desire to move and like say, here it is, you know, but usually when you move, you destabilize the embouchure just enough that any security that you had is destroyed. So like stay still, move economically, you know, like you're trying to conserve energy. I think it's going to be better, you know, for your security, right? And that goes for all of us. Did you have a question? Or no, you're just stretching out? Okay. I got excited. I'm sure it was going to be a great question. Or
You recommend any forearm stretches?
what's your question?
It's kind of a little off of what you were just talking about, but how do you think about breathing and staggering? And
Oh, yes. Excellent. Thanks for asking. So breathing, what do we think about breathing? And that's the second thing that I noticed. Kris, I noticed when I played with you, we were breathing in the same spot. Okay, and I don't know if you guys in your sectionals, did you talk about breathing and where you were going to breathe? That it would be staggered?
It came up. It might not have come up in this
I don't think we picked
but
breaths
it
for
came
this
up
section.
in places, but maybe not this one.
Yeah.
So, you know, I try to breathe late. I try to hide my breaths as well as possible. But that's, you know, in Brahms, I found section breaths a little more applicable than I would find in Bruckner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in Bruckner, you're looking for more of a staggered setup, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Usually when I can see this. Okay, yes,
Yeah,
you've marked
this
it.
is what I've been
Okay,
doing.
good. Yeah. So in answer to Liz's question, yeah, stagger the breathing as well as you can so that you just hear one seamless phrase in this section. It just so happens that Kris and I have similar instincts, and we decided to breathe in the same spot.
Me too.
Well, did you guys set up to breathe together?
No.
No? No? Okay, all right. All right, do you want one more shot at that? Or
Yeah.
shall we? Okay, all right. So
Do you want us to stagger it this time?
stagger it and and don't move. Don't
Okay.
move.
I didn't know I was moving.
Yeah, like it's yeah. Don't move. Don't move unless you feel like you can get away with it and it's very necessary. And it really does require your colleagues to listen more. But all it takes is one time, and then it starts to facilitate more trust. I think when you stop moving, you start to really trust your colleagues, and then you relax in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
More relaxed, more resonant, better sound, get a job. Everything starts to fall into place.
So you just want to do the rest of the doing and I'll do the other one?
Yeah, is that cool?
Yeah, sure. You were doing
I was doing that.
this exact thing here, right? Yeah. Yeah.
For the first two, I definitely was.
Okay. All that's off on the one.
Yeah. One, two, three, four. One, two.
We've got a request here to move the microphone. I actually think that it might be apropos.
Or would it be easier to move the floor over?
No, because I like the angle well enough. Would you mind if you were going to switch places with the microphone?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Okay.
Yeah.
See if that does the trick.
That's diminished chord. We'll get it tomorrow.
All right. Let me know if that, in YouTube land, let me know if that helps. Shall we roll forward?
Sure.
Okay. So that's the first movement, if I'm not mistaken. And I suggested a while back that we do the big kind of the audition lick. And the audition lick is typically at P in the last movement, right? For this, it's highly possible to get overly aggressive. And not to say that you were going to play it this way, it's just for all of us, preparing for auditions and section playing, the section round. I feel like this is a check in so many levels to see if somebody will take the bait and play like a pig, right? That's if I were putting this on an audition, that's what the main thing I would, let's put a loud excerpt on there and see if they make it into an aggressive moment, right? See if they turn sort of piggish or they play louder than they can play with a beautiful sound, right? The other thing that you want to check in with, if this is on an audition, is of course how well how quickly they can adjust, right? Because pitch is not absolute. It's the harmony of all of these excerpts has to be addressed when you're preparing this, and you have to practice it with a tuner first, and then you have to practice with multiple sections in your preparation so that you're used to adjusting quickly. You got the minor third. Which direction you go? Up or down? Up. Speak up. Come on. Just blurt it out. Okay. What about if you got the minor seven? Way down. Right. Major third. Down. Yeah. All right. Yeah. That even extends to like, I'm thinking about like the Sunshine chord in the end of Brahms 2. If you've got a D major chord and you've got the F sharp, everybody's playing fortissimo. Maybe the F sharp doesn't have to be quite as aggressive as the root in the fifth, right? If you've got a dominant 7 chord and you're on the 7th and it's fortissimo, perhaps the dominant 7, that flat 7, doesn't quite have to be as loud, nowhere near as loud as the tonic, okay? And so you learn to adjust this, not because you wrote the chord changes in your part, but it's just intuitive. You turn it, you've practiced it so much that it becomes intuition. You can hear that you have the 3rd immediately. You can hear that you have the 7th immediately, and you adjust it quickly. It's very much the trick to navigating a section round, or one of the tricks, because there's, of course, a variety of factors that go into it. So let's see if anybody takes the bait, shall we? You guys are starting at P. I'm going to lurk behind you, if you don't mind, just so I can follow along with the part. Robbie, it looks like we lost the feed for a moment, so we're back online. Just so you know, they nailed it. I don't know how long we went offline. Are you looking at it? 15 seconds. All right. Well, we're back on.
Hopefully it was exactly the length that we played.
Hopefully it was exactly the length that you played. Ah.
Cut half of the last chord.
Aw. Cut half of the last chord.
Caught half of the last chord.
Caught half of the last chord.
Do it again.
Okay. So what do you think? Can you do it again? Okay. That was. Do you want a break? I'll jump in for you if you want.
I don't need one, but if you want to.
If you don't need one, then there you go. Hit it. Hit it. Okay. Listen. Those two quarter notes that you have, give them weight and length. You guys are doing a great job of playing sort of a pesante tempo, B, dom, bom, but there's a bit too much space. Would you agree? You replay what you just did in your mind, you think that maybe you could make that a bit more of a melody, right? Okay. When I play really loud, I think dolce cantabile. Okay, so you didn't get anywhere close to aggressive, and that's great. But I think that this kind of clipped ba ba potentially isn't dolce. Bom bom. Yeah, well done, Greg. Yeah, well done all. Let me just switch this, I think. Yeah, a little more light. Nice. I think we should roll on from there. Yeah, that's. Go ahead, hit it.
How do you think of the 30-second notes?
Oh, how do we think of the 30-second notes? I'm glad you brought that up, George. No, I think that's a really good question. I think that in the little research that I've done for this class, we find out that the pairing of Bruckner 7 with Die Walküre and Das Rheingold is apropos because Wagner, was one of Bruckner's idols, right? And this dotted value note followed by a short note, we see it in Die Walküre, right? And in both cases, it's possible to kind of clip or make it too sharp, right? Now, listen, one of the phenomena of playing in the back row is that short notes sound softer than long notes, right? If you play everything equal, the short note is just not going to have the carrying power, right? And so you kind of do have to bring them out a little bit more, but you can oftentimes overdo that, right? And if you overdo the sort of sharper attack, the aggressiveness of the 32nd note, not only does it kind of change your timbre from a sort of like golden-hued, refined, expensive event, it can turn it a little cheap if you're not careful. But the other thing is, if you bring that out, it kind of displaces the downbeat. Bum, ba-dum, 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 ba-dum. The short note ends up, because it's louder, starting to sound like the downbeat or the big beat. So, okay, to answer your question, Dan, is the short note itself, give it a firm attack, but give it length. I think in both the Die Valkyrie on the 16th, and then in this case on the 32nd, I think about giving it as much length as possible with a firm attack. Okay? Yeah, I don't want to play it because I think the way that you guys did it was fine. Yeah, I do actually. I changed my mind. Yeah, let me jump in there. And the main reason, Kris, I want to give you another shot at this. As you are looking at this at R, immer breiter, right? Always a bit slower, right? Always, you're moving slower. Think broad, think round, think warm. Okay, so as much as like the event is goading you to take the bait, you have to just stop short of going too far. And I've definitely done that. I've been in especially if I'm doing a pops concert, for example, and I'll give it everything I got, and I end the show and I feel, God, that my face hurts, right? I feel that divot, like I've been pushing too hard, and then the next night I'll ease off. I'll play like maybe 90% of that. And then I listen to a recording of both, and the difference in volume is so minimal. I'm like, why am I taking such a big risk? It wasn't like I thought that I needed to bring more volume, and in fact, the difference between me giving like what I feel is like 102% and 95% is a barely discernible difference in volume. So I would have you consider, when you're in the heat of battle and you're playing what you feel like as loud as you can play with a golden sound, and the music is asking you to play louder, perhaps that isn't necessary. Perhaps that isn't, maybe you need to like redo the pacing so you don't get to that point where you've essentially painted yourself into a corner, right? P, you want to do it? Okay. Yeah, I think that was a lot warmer. It still felt like we were a little squirrely on that C flat, just there on the end, right? And frankly, like if we're playing in the orchestra, and I heard that happening, I'd probably back off just because it's, if I'm not mistaken, who's on top of the texture there? I think it's first trumpet. No? Am I right? Am I wrong?
At the very end?
Yeah, right there on that C flat.
Yeah, unison with the trumpets.
Unison with the trumpets. So when I hear any pitch problems like that, I'm just like, well, you know what? In this moment, you know, horns, trumpets are above me. It's not about me, right? So yeah, it's a C flat. It's in the upper register, and it's marked, you know, with a TP on it. But we discussed that before. It's going to be a little more gentle. But it's triple forte, right? Now, if I were mindless and I heard a pitch problem, I'd be like, well, I got this. I know it's in tune. You just like let it be where it is, and other people got to adjust. You know, we've all played in ensembles like that, but we all know like it's not about me. It's not about you. You know, like if trumpet or horn, you know, if they're putting it where they think it is, it's probably more about them than it is about us. So I don't know, like I always kind of guide my blend, my sound, my timbre, my pitch, my rhythm to whoever has the melody. And in the case like this, it's a unison lick, right? So people in the ensemble, people in the audience, they're going to hear the top part, the horn, the trumpet, as having the dominant role in that moment. And so because of that, if you make their lives difficult by playing really loud and not in tune with them, not necessarily out of tune, because you might be like straight up and down, but like if they're feeling, you know, tired at all and they go sharp or flat, you know, you don't go with them, or you don't sort of warm their sound, your sound, or, you know, you can make their life really difficult enough that potentially they would fall off the note, and then the band sounds wrong, right? We want the team to win. We want the team to win. So if that means I play forte or poco forte instead of triple forte, and the band sounds right, then that's what happens. Okay? I don't know. Do you want to give it one more shot? Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
Answer for me.
Yeah, please.
You spoke earlier about the three types of articulations that are in here.
Yeah.
So when we have the marcato accents and the regular accent side by side, how would you approach making those sound different?
Oh, great. Thanks for bringing that up, Eric. Yeah. No. Okay. So Eric's asking about.
Like particularly in a spot like this,
Yeah.
where they're side by side.
So everybody following along with their parts in the score, if you look 2 bars before R, you see sort of a wedge or a caret. It's you would look at it kind of like a staccato, and then that is with an accent, and then you have the marcato. So right, this is a great question because if I'm not mistaken, those 2 notes they make more sense to me when I look at what's familiar, and tuba part is not familiar to me. Yeah, so bum ba dum bum be da ba. To me, if you look at before R, you have a pickup before, and it's like a kind of a military moment with this accent, kind of a harder attack, and then these sharp attacks with the wedges and the accents, bum ba deem bum, and then it switches to more of a broad cantabulate. Bum ba deem bum ba dee da da. Right? That's how I approach that, and you get that several times over. I think you'd agree that happens. A change in articulation, essentially from Q on. You have the different articulation right next to each other. You know, as I said before. It's important to show up to the first rehearsal with this research done, and odds are if you're playing with first trumpet, they're going to have just as strong an opinion as you, and you kind of have to go with them. You know, you don't want to like. There can be discussion, of course, right? But there's not always time, and if they have a well thought out opinion enough, you know, like go with them. You know, like you don't want to like show up to work and have a battle about 2 bars before R. You know, when you're looking at a whole symphony, and you're like, at the end of the day, you just want to play together, right? So a lot of times there is a discussion about it, but in this case, sometimes you just choose to go with the band because clearly the first trumpet, the first horn, or first trombone is leading in a consistent way that clearly they have an idea what they want to do, and you choose your battles appropriately. Battle potentially is too strong a term, but discussion about it. Anyways, I digress. Give it another go, and we'll move on. One more time. Just stop short always. You remember the dynamic extremes. Never play too soft to be tentative or timid, right? Never play so loud to be aggressive. Things are getting just a little bit aggressive on those 30-second notes, okay?
One of the things when I'm hearing recording of this is the difference in tempo.
Right, the difference in tempo.
And it's like so extreme of like who's conducting it. Sometimes it's as slow as how they're playing it at the very end of the excerpt. Sometimes it's considerably faster.
Yeah.
What would you suggest to use as a tempo when you're playing that for a committee?
Well, so you're wondering about like for preparing an audition, how close is what we're doing here for the tempo you should be using in your section preparation, and I'm sure in your individual preparation. And you said very appropriately, one recording goes a little, considerably slower. Some are right in here, and maybe some even go faster, right? Definitely the more notable the recording, the more influence it's going to have on other conductors. So I would say, grab 2 or 3 of your favorite. I really enjoy the Vienna recording of this. I think Cleveland also has a great recording of this. Chicago, the amazing Barenboim recordings of these are just incredible. What I've noticed performing it myself is that it seems like this one, 4 and 8, and then Mahler 3 all go like 2 to 3 times slower than I think they're going to go. And it's just like the drama that gets you kind of emotionally attached to the event of the music. It just gets more and more stretched. You like enjoy the grip of the pain a little more. And because of that, in performance, oftentimes you end up going slower than faster, okay? For an audition, I would say it's probably going to be really close to some of your favorite recordings. And you should, as for all of your section excerpts, practice them at being musically effective at a variety of tempos. Your job is to be able to adjust quickly, and if you've practiced going ridiculously slow and ridiculously fast, you're going to be quickly able to adapt to your potentially new section's proclivities. There's some long words for you. Great question, Patrick. Is there any other questions?
There are a couple.
All right, hit it, Mike.
How important would you say it is to watch the conductor during this passage?
Okay, that's okay. I immediately want to dismiss this question. However, I think there might be giving them the benefit of the doubt. How important is it to watch the conductor in this passage? Of course, the knee-jerk reaction is what do you mean? It's of course you're going to watch the conductor. It's the guy or girl that's signing your checks, okay? If the conductor feels that you don't care about their artistic vision, that might plant some seeds you don't want planted in their mind, and that's not good. However, I think that the spirit of the question is oftentimes the conductor will be far ahead of where the ensemble is, right? And this is something that I've noticed, typically with softer passages and very tender entrances where the conductor gives a beat and the ensemble comes in 2 to 3 seconds after, okay? Now, as I said before, when we're talking about rhythm and pitch and especially volume, you want to play together. You want the team to win, okay? So you watch the conductor for artistic vision, and you sense when your colleagues are breathing, right? And these things all happen maybe asynchronously, and that's okay, okay? That's okay. You watch the conductor. The conductor, as I said, has to have the impression that there's a connection, right? And you are with them on their artistic vision. This is very important. And you will have a better scope of what they're up to. This is very significant to keeping your job. However, you have to stay together with the ensemble. And if they are playing behind, then you play behind, and that makes the ensemble right, okay? I have seen dramatic variations, both in here and for notable orchestras, when I lived in Chicago, where the conductor would be far ahead of the ensemble, but the ensemble stayed together. And I've noticed that for most big orchestras, they work really hard to stay flexible to each other's playing, each other's rhythm, each other's pitch, okay? Remember the third step in winning the audition. Do you remember that? What is it? Being an adaptable musician, right? So the first step is the 3 T's, right? Time, tune, tone, right? What's the second step? Being an inspiring musician. You have to demonstrate inspiring musicianship. And the last step is to be adaptable. God, you guys are... Can you guys breathe like you're going to play Bruckner and then say it again? Adaptable. Okay, all right. I laugh about it, but you'd be surprised. If you're an adaptable musician, that's how you get to and it's okay because you're adaptable, okay? You can be flexible to rhythm and pitch, okay? And style, for that matter. Why don't we tie a bow on this one? Unless there's more that you want to play, I think it's time to roll forth onto the Wagner.
There was just a question about.
Oh, right.
Do you know which
Sorry.
edition you play here?
Which edition do we play?
The Novak or the Haas?
It actually depends on the conductor. That's a really great question. Which edition do we play in the BSO? And things like this often are, we'll do this both with the maestro, although we haven't done Bruckner 7 yet with Andres Nelson's. I assume we will soon enough. Oftentimes, the conductor has their own set. They bring that, and that's what we play. So, it depends. It depends. And again, you have to stay flexible. There's some things that we do that are stylistically consistent no matter what edition that we play. Where we breathe or how aggressively or not aggressively we articulate. The placement of a grace note, for example. Even like, the doubling of a part will stay consistent to a style if we have enough repetition and recent memory. But we try to stay flexible, especially if it's the music director. Oh no, we lost the shot, didn't we? Let me see if we can get that back. But this is the perfect time for it, so don't sweat it, because we need to switch for the Wagner. Is there any other questions besides that? You said that it was just those two, Mike? All right. Okay. Well, let's reset the angles, and we've got the bass trumpet to tuba for this. Bravo again, guys. Well done.
Stuck, sorry. Jerked it. Sorry about that.
So you jerked this? And
Yeah, I hit
did it
the- I hit
turn
the
off?
button.
Or?
I don't know.
Oh, I
I'm
see.
sorry. It got stuck in. So I
Let's
was
see if
trying
this
to
gets
save
it
it.
back. Oh. No? Feels like it's hot. Unless that's...
The tripod was working so good.
I think did it show a battery?
It was earlier.
Right, that's,